Hello, scholars. Can you believe that we're already on lesson 11 in our reading mastery book? Because I can't even believe it. This year has been flying by so quickly. So let's find lesson 11 in our book. We're going to skip lesson 10, which is a test for the Old Henry story that we've been reading, and we're going to skip that. And then once we finish lesson 12 in our book, that's when we're going to take our quiz. Okay, so everyone find lesson 11 in your textbook. If you need a little bit longer, you can pause the video and find lesson 11. Okay, awesome. So here we go. Find column 1 in your textbook. Number 1 says Eskimo. What word? Number 2 says sun. What word? Number 3 says kayak. What word? Number 4 says ordinary. What word? Number 5 says scientist. What word? Good. Let's read these words the fast way. Word 1, what word? Word 2, what word? Word 3, what word? Word 4, what word? Word 5, what word? Very good. Has anyone ever been kayaking before? I have been kayaking before. We have some kayaks up at our cabin. And a kayak is like a canoe, but you sit in it, and instead of rowing on just one side, you row on one side, and then the other side, and then the other side. And a lot of times you kayak by yourself. So a lot of times when you're in a canoe, you're with another person, but when you're kayaking, you're doing it by yourself. Okay, find column 2. These words have 2 parts to them. Okay, when I say what's the first part, you're going to say the underlined part. And then when I say what's the whole word, then you're going to say the whole word. Okay, are you ready? Number 1, what's the underlined part? What's the whole word? Word 2, what's the underlined part? What's the whole word? Word 3, what's the underlined part? What's the whole word? Word 4, what's the underlined part? What's the whole word? Word 5, what's the underlined part? What's the whole word? Good. Let's go through these words the fast way. Word 1, what word? Word 2, what word? Word 3, what word? Word 4, what word? Word 5, what word? Excellent. Find column 3. These are all months of the year. Do you notice that they all start with a capital letter? That means that they are what kind of noun? That's right, that means that they are a proper noun. Here we go. Word 1 says January. What word? Word 2 says March. What word? Word 3 says December. What word? Word 4 says February. What word? Let's read these words the fast way. Word 1, what word? Word 2, what word? Word 3, what word? Word 4, what word? What month are we closest to? So what month is going to come next? January, March, December, or February? So we're in September. December, good. We're closest to December. December, then January, then February, then March. All right, I'm thinking of our secret word today. Oh no, we're not even done yet. Okay, sorry. Find the next column, column 4. Word 1 says reaches. What word? Word 2 says honking. What word? Word 3 says friends. What word? Word 4 says splashing. What word? Word 5 says tilted. What word? Let's read those words the fast way. Word 1, what word? Word 2, what word? Word 3, what word? Word 4, what word? Word 5, what word? Excellent. Everyone find column 5. All right. Number 1 says Newman's Lake. What word? Word 2 says 70. What word? Word 3 says sir. What word? Word 4 says constant. What word? Word 5 says ignore. What word? Word 6 says spear. What word? Good. Let's read those words the fast way. Number 1, what place? Number 2, what word? Number 3, what word? Number 4, what word? Number 5, what word? Number 6, what word? Excellent. I'm thinking of a secret word. It is a noun. It is 2 syllables. It is a thing noun. So it's not a place noun. It's not a person. It is in column 1. That's right. Kayak. Very good. Okay, here we go. Find part B in your textbook. We're going to read the next story about Old Tim and Henry, but first we're going to read this information passage. And when I say we, I mean me, okay? I'm going to pause and let you answer the questions as I go along. I expect you to be following along in your text. Here we go. Everybody touch the title. Everybody, what's the title? The Tilt of the Earth. Here we go. The Earth is tilted. The poles are not straight up and down. Instead, they tilt. I'm going to read that again. The Earth is tilted. The poles are not straight up and down. Instead, they tilt. So look at picture 1 and picture 2. Picture 1 shows what the Earth would look like if the poles were always straight up and down. Picture 2, what the Earth would look like if the poles were tilted. So picture 1, the Earth is like this. That is not how the Earth is in space. Rather, the Earth is tilted, like in picture 2. Remember, the poles are tilted. They are not straight up and down. Let's keep reading. And the poles tilt the same way as the Earth circles the sun. Scholars, does the tilt change as the Earth goes around the sun? No. So if it's tilted like this, it goes around the sun just like this. The tilt doesn't ever change. Let's keep reading. Picture 3 shows the tilt of the Earth during the different seasons. Touch the Earth at winter time. The North Pole tilts away from the sun in the winter. Do you see how the North Pole is pointing away from that sun? Interesting. I'm going to say that again. Do you see how the words are bolded there? That means that that's an important fact for us to remember. The North Pole tilts away from the sun during the winter. Let's keep reading. You can see that half of the Earth is in shadow and half is in sunlight, but the North Pole is completely in shadow. That means that as the Earth spins around and around during the winter time, there is no daylight at the North Pole. There is constant darkness. That means that it looks like it's nighttime all day long. Okay? Let's listen to that again. But the North Pole is completely in shadow. That means that as the Earth spins around and around during the winter time, there is no daylight at the North Pole. There is constant darkness. If the North Pole is in darkness, there is no daytime. There is just nighttime throughout the winter. Remember when the North Pole tilts away from the sun? What season is it? Winter, that's right. So during the winter time, the North Pole gets no sun. Let's keep reading. Touch the Earth in the summertime. Error. It says, touch the Earth at summertime. The North Pole tilts toward the sun during summer. So if the North Pole is up here, it's tilting away from the sun during the winter. Here's spring, and then summertime, it comes over here and it's pointing exactly towards the sun. Half the Earth is in shadow and half is in sunlight, but the North Pole tilts toward the sun, so it is completely in the sunlight. That means that at the North Pole during summer, there is no night. There is daylight all the time during the summer. The sun never sets. Remember, if the pole tilts away from the sun, it's winter time, and if the pole It's wintertime at the pole and there is no daylight. If the pole tilts toward the sun, it is summertime and there is no night. Interesting. So the farther north you go, scholars, the shorter the daytime is in the winter and the longer the daytime is in the summer. That's why here in Minnesota, we're up pretty far north, right? So in the wintertime, the sun sets maybe around 4 o'clock, like when school gets out. And then during the summertime, I remember there were some nights where it was like 9 o'clock at night and there was still some light out. Interesting. Okay, Fine Part Senior Textbook. There are 11 errors for this reading, so be paying attention to Miss Halverson because she makes lots of mistakes, and if she makes 11, we'll have to do it again. Okay, here we go. Everybody touch the title. Everybody, what's the title? The Flock Reaches Florida. Very good. The next morning before the flock took off, Henry tried out his wing. He took off from the field and flew around the lake. When he landed, Tim came up to him and said, "I know what you're doing. You were trying to see if your wing is all right. Is it?" "It feels pretty good," Henry said with a smile. "I can fly today." And he did. The leader of the flock honked out directions to the goose that would be at the point of the V. Then there were loud splashing and flapping sounds as more than 80 geese took off from Jackson Lake. Tim and old Henry took their place near the back of the V, and the flock went higher and higher. "Why are we going so high?" Tim asked. When we're up high, we'll be able to ride some winds that are blowing toward Florida. We should be able to go far today without doing much work." Scholars, what state are the geese in? Georgia. Good. What is the name of the lake they just left? Jackson Lake. Yep. How many geese are in the flock? More than 80. Why did they fly so high? Because they wanted to travel with the wind going to Florida. Would that be less work for the geese or more work? Less work. Good. Let's keep reading. The winds blew and the flock flew. Around noon, Henry told Tim, "We're in Florida now." "Wow," Tim said. "That means we're almost at Crooked Lake." Henry laughed. "No, we still have a long way to go, and we won't get there today. It's more than 200 miles to Crooked Lake." Tim said, "So where will we spend the night?" "I don't know. Our flock always stops at Newman's Lake, which is about 70 miles from here. But I don't think that's where this flock lands." Oops. Error. Quite a few, actually. But I don't know where this flock lands. Less than 2 hours later, Henry found out where the flock would land, at Newman's Lake. What was the name of the lake that Henry's flock landed at? Newman's Lake. Good. What state is that in? Florida. Good. Let's keep reading. There were lots and lots of geese around Newman's Lake. Tim said, "It looks like all the geese in the world are right here." "There are a lot of geese here," Henry said, "but wait until you see how many geese there are near Crooked Lake." The flock circled Newman's Lake and landed near a shore that was covered with geese. Some of them were honking and showing off by flapping their wings. Others were napping. The leader of the flock swam over to old Henry and said, "We're going to spend tomorrow resting here. Then we'll go to Reedy Lake the next day. Do you plan to fly with us?" Henry flapped his wings and said, "I do. I feel fine." Tim smiled and said, "Me too." So, 2 days later, Tim and Henry were flying high above Crooked Lake. Henry told Tim, "This is where we leave the flock. Our lake is right down there." Old Henry flew up near the front of the great V and called to the leader. "Thank you, sir," Henry said. "You're a fine leader and you have a wonderful flock. We were glad to have the chance to fly with you." "Good luck to both of you," the leader said. Then Henry and Tim swooped down from the flock. "I can't wait to see my mom and dad," Tim said. Henry was also looking forward to seeing his own old friends and his children and grandchildren. But he also felt a little sad. As the two geese swooped closer and closer to the beautiful blue lake below, Henry knew that he would miss flying with Tim. This trip was the first time in years that Henry felt that somebody really needed his help. That was a good feeling for Henry. Scholars, who did Henry talk to before he and Tim left the flock? That's right, the leader of the other flock. Who was Tim looking forward to seeing? His parents, good. And then who is Henry looking forward to seeing? His children and grandchildren. So they finally made the trip all the way to Crooked Lake. All right, find lesson 11 in your packet. We're going to talk a little bit about theme today. Theme is tricky. Theme is a really tricky thing to talk about. So I'm really glad that we kind of have our reading legs on us already, and we're at lesson 11, so we can talk about the theme. Let's look at the top of the page here. It says, Lesson 11, Theme. The theme of a story is the underlying message, the big idea of the story. The author is trying to share an idea about life that is important. So, if you've ever read something that had a little more substance to it, so like let's say you've read Harry Potter, a theme could be friendship or fortitude. You know, Harry never gives up and he relies on his friends a lot. We're going to look at 3 themes that could be the themes of this story, and they're all virtues. So the first one we talk about here is fortitude. Fortitude is the theme of the stories about old Henry and Tim. Fortitude means having the courage to face challenges and obstacles. What is one example of fortitude in these stories? Scholars, a lot of you are still not putting the question in your answer. So I'm going to underline the question here. It says, what is one example of fortitude in these stories? I'm going to see how many your challenge is to see how many words from that question we can actually get into our answer. Okay, so one example of fortitude in these stories is when. So let's see, how many words did I get there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8 actually, because 1 is not in it. So I have 8. 8 words from the question in my answer. I want everyone else to have 8 words from the question in their answer as well. And then you give me your answer. Tell me, when was one time that one of the geese used fortitude in this story? Okay. Now, the next theme could be justice. Justice is the theme of the stories about old Henry and Tim. Justice means treating others with respect and taking responsibility for their well-being. What is one example of justice in these stories? I'm going to try to get 8 words again. One example of justice in these stories is when ... Let's see if I got my 8 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Awesome. 8 words. Now the third one is prudence. Prudence is a theme of the stories about old Henry and Tim. Prudence is about having sound judgment and making sound choices. I'm going to underline my question. What is one example of prudence in these stories? One example of prudence in these stories is when ... Give me your answer. Okay, so you should have all of the lines filled out. Okay, that's what really good answers have. I'm going to be looking for really good examples in your work today. And then those of you who do such a good job, I'm going to share them with the rest of the class. So it's going to kind of be like an honor to have your work shared when you do a really good job. Let's look at the rubric down below. What a good answer has. Part of the question in my answer so it makes sense to my readers. Yes or no? Miss Nelson, Mrs. Halverson and Mrs. Altumbulik will decide if that's a yes or no. Has an example of fortitude, has an example of justice, has an example of prudence. Capitalization and proper punctuation. That's the easiest point that you can get, gang. All right? Okay. Well, I hope that you are still enjoying our story about old Henry and Tim. And tomorrow is our very last story about old Tim and Henry. Old Henry and Tim. And then we will be working in the one and only Ivan no, that's not true. We'll be working in the whale book for a while. And then the one and only Ivan. So I hope you've enjoyed the story. Only one lesson left before we move on. Have an awesome day, and I will see you next time. Bye, readers.